I like a little thin piece of wood. I'll show you how that works. And this is come along kind of deal. Pipe wrench, ordinary pipe wrench will work. Nail gun. I don't know if I have the right nails in there. Today I'm going to be screwing them together because I'm going to take them apart and use them for another triangle. But you'll get the idea. So what we're going to do, we're going to come over here to the table, get two boards. The colors should always match up. You're going blue to blue, white to white. You get the idea. Now you see why this table is so important. All right, come over here and look at this. Okay, here's our joint. Now,
I'm in the shadow.
The reason I put this little stick under here is because the bottom is the long side. That's going to be our plywood side. And I want our plywood to set flat on there. I don't want a gap. So this way I ensure that if these are off a little bit up here, if the width is off on the board, that this side will be flat. Okay? So I'm going to put a little glue on here. Make believe. Little glue on there. Okay? Now the way I nail these, you want to keep your hands back out of the way, of course. Set this up here like so. Get it where you like it.
Doesn't look even.
Flush. Bang. 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 3 nails. Now I nail toward the top side here, more this way. You see my nails are 1, 2, and 3, and not so much on the bottom because that's where the plywood's going to be and all the nails that the decking goes into. So it's going to be supported well, nailed well on the inside. Put a couple of screws in this. Hold it while I'm doing this. Alright. Now then we're going to take it. We're going to move it around. The joint should be strong enough where you can turn this. Now your overlap is always the same. You're working from the same side every time. And it should overlap this way because it makes it easier to nail. If you're right-handed, I guess if you're left-handed, you want the overlaps the other way. But for me, this works good. I'll get this out of the way. Long side down. Overlap the joint. Glue.
Did you say glue?
Yeah, glue the joint. Get the idea. Once you're in the rhythm of things, it goes pretty fast. Now, a way to check your work on your pattern, you know, of course, we can measure the inside and the outside measurements. That's always good. But another way to do it is to take this off. Be careful with it. You don't want it coming apart, especially with these screws in it. Come over here. You see how close that comes together? That's what you're looking for. If you ain't got that, then, you know, like I say, some of the other triangles, there might be a little gap in here, you know, because you're just using the same cut. You're gonna have to adjust the saw some occasionally, but it shouldn't be more than a couple of degrees one way or the other. You know, you might have to turn it just a little bit this way, you might have to turn it just a little bit this way, just to fine tune it. Once you get it on your measurements, then it's gonna be good to go. All right, get down low over here. See, this side is flush because I got it on that block, and see, this side is a little high. That's going to be your sheetrock side. If you got a little problem like that, it's just as easy to do it now. This is a good place to do it, straighten it up. If it's just a little high, it's probably not going to hurt. You know, do-it-yourselfers take a little more pride in their work than the guy that's just getting paid by the hour. Anybody else would let that go. But you can take this joiner, run it down through there, and that'll be a smooth corner, and it'll fit good, and you won't have to worry about your rock getting cracked.
No.
Okay, once you get it nailed up, now we're just talking about the pattern for right now. Usually at this point, when you're done, you'll take this, we call it the carcass, and you can stack them out somewhere, lean them up. Then the next step will be drilling the holes, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But for right now, on your pattern, you want to lay out for your blocking, because you're going to cut your blocking to go along with this for the triangles, because it has the same angles. The blocking has the same angles as this. So we're going to turn this over. This is our pattern.
Sorry to interrupt, James, but I just needed to talk a little bit about blocking for a moment. Over the years, James has done the blocking in different ways, and I think sometimes it might have depended on the size of the dome and the insulation that was being used. This is the layout here that he's describing how to do the blocking in. Basically, you see the triangles laid out here, and the blocking is laid out at every 2 feet. This works well for if you doing like bat insulation. You can just lay the bats of insulation in there. It also works well for doing your sheetrock, because you just come off the longest strut here, the bottom of the triangle, you mark up 2 feet, draw your line, that's where your screws or nails are going to go, and it's easy to get your insulation in there. Let me flip over here to another picture. I want to show you one that he shows in the assembly assembly video that he does later on, and it's where he's using like a T style with the braces coming up, so you run your bats long ways. Works about the same for the bats insulation and laying out for your sheetrock. You just come off the center 2 foot each direction. Sometimes you might want to look at how your plywood lays in there, because like if you have a seam going all the way up the middle of your triangle from where you've spliced 2 half pieces of plywood in there, then this T blocking may work a little better. It's a little harder to lay out than this method here. But you notice in this one, he's got these little blocks of plywood up there. That's probably where he's laid in like a little 2 foot piece of triangle to get better use of the plywood. And the plywood pieces weren't laying flat, so he screwed and glued in a little stiffener piece up behind it. And I think that somewhere you see these, like, that's not quite a 2 foot difference here, but I bet that's what this blocking here was for, was that's where a seam was in the plywood. And then a little later, he goes on to talk about bolt hole patterns and laying out the blocking for the bolt holes. I'll show you in this model real quick kind of what he's talking about and how it your struts line up. Like here's a triangle, these struts are lining up, so you could probably put bolts anywhere through here. But if you look over here at this triangle, where this triangle and this triangle matches up, see the way the struts fit in through here, trying to find where your bolt holes are going to be is really difficult to. So you need to lay these out, lay out your triangles, lay out your patterns beforehand before you start going through and drilling all your bolt holes and figure out where they just fit best. Can't really tell you exactly where they're going to be because each size dome comes out a little differently. Like your blocking's always 2 foot, but the dome length is different. So each triangle, it just ends up in a different spot. One other picture I want to show you real quick was this blocking, in which here's your main triangle. And instead of doing cross blocking, he's done a smaller triangle blocking inside. It's probably the strongest of the triangles for the dome because triangle inside of another triangle is just going to make it stronger. But for this type of dome, you almost have to do spray foam insulation because trying to get bats of insulation to lay in here would be a lot of cutting and hard work. And they may not fit the spacing. Also, for laying in your sheetrock, you have to mark out where the studs are on your sheetrock before you go screwing them in, because you can't like measure off of one side very easily. And then there's this one last picture. And this one's where the blocking is kind of mixed between that T-style, but then he's done the kind of like triangles on the corners. And I looked at another picture that this one came from, and this one was also spray foamed, so they didn't have to worry about laying the bats in here. But you do have again, this may be one where the plywood was seamed together along the middle, and that's why he did the bracing up the middle, as opposed to straight across. But he's always done the triangle forms the same way. The base triangles screwed together, bolted together. It's just kind of a matter of preference on how you want to do the interior. Some works better for some domes with, like I said, the spray foam versus bat insulation. And if you're going to finish the dome off on the inside, the triangles look pretty cool, I think, if you're just doing a unfinished dome, if you just want a shell for like a garage or something. Continue on, James.
Good 8-foot level. When you do your pattern, you should start with the best lumber you can find. You want something that's going to be nice and straight. See this? Look over here down this line. See how that's nice and straight? You want that for your pattern. If it's off a little bit on the rest of them, it's not a big deal, because you'll pull it in and out with the plywood. But for the pattern, because we're going to do our layout work on that. You want it nice and straight. That's pretty good. Now then, so I'm going to lay out my blocks. They're going to be on 2-foot centers. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Come over here. Here's 2 foot.
Nope.
You want, back up a little bit. You want to come perpendicular off here. If you get over here like this or like this, then your blocking's not going to be in there square. You can take a carpenter's square or a square like that. Get somewhere there. Now the thing you're going to do, you're going to mark 3/4 of an inch on each side of the 2 foot. The 2 foot is your center. The 2 foot is the center of your blocking. That way when you put your plywood on and you get ready to nail, you put your clip on there and you know that your nailer is at 2 foot, and you can mark that and and nail it. And I'll show you that farther down the line. So right now we got 2 foot. We're going to do another one at 4 foot. That's where the plywood's going to break at. Now I'm just eyeballing it, but I'm pretty good. You can get a carpenter square out. Make sure it's square. Come over and do the other side the same way. 3/4 of an inch on each side of the 24. So you're 23 and 0.25 and 24.75. Same with the 48. Now you don't really need one up here because you're within 2 feet and you're within 2 feet, so that covers on that. This is going to be where your joint's at for your 4 foot plywood. So now, what I like to do is get a good straight line going across here, like so. As long as this board is really straight, you should be able to come over here and measure back to that and get 47 1/4, which is exactly what I have. It's just a good check, okay? Same way with the next one. Put your board up there. Check it, you should be at 23 1/4. Okay, that's just to make sure that your pattern is right. Here's the deal: if you're going to cut 60 of these and you make a mistake, then you've made 60 mistakes. So you want to make sure you get it right the first time. Now that we've got our layout, we're going to take a measurement, and you'll notice the outside is always going to be the long point. When we put our board in here. This is going to be the long point, okay? So that's where we're going to measure to, the long point. And we're going to cut those now. I'm going to get a measurement over here. I've got 66. And 38 1/4. Now, yours is different than that. I'm just running measurements off that I'm running random. You're going to have to use your book and get your measurements right, and then whatever your long points tell you are, then that's what you're going to work with. So now I'm going to cut those 2 blocks. Okay, so you cut however many blocks you have triangles for. Once again, it's the same. You saw it be set up the same. These angles are the same. The joiner will be the same. So you go ahead and cut them now while you got everything set up. You're not going to put them in right now, but you're going to set them in. Okay. Come over here and look at this. Okay. See, that's a little bit long, so I'm going to have to go back and set up my my stop so it's a little shorter. But for right now, we're going to think that it's good. Just pretend with me that that's good. And this one here, we're going to pretend that that one's good. Okay? So now you got your blocks in there. Now what I want you to do, you're going to get all of these patterns made. Okay? And it'll probably be a good idea just to screw them together the first time. Because what we're going to do now is lay out our holes for drilling. You're not going to do that now. All you're going to do is do the layout. Here's the thing. This blocking, the way the triangles work, triangles get smaller, the blocking stays the same. And if it interferes with your bolts, putting those bolts in, then you're going to be in trouble. When you put it up, you won't have room to get your bolts in.